I'm Larry Taylor, the real life lawyer. And someone asked me once, hey, do you represent only black folks? And I laughed. I said, do I have a story to tell you? So I used to do criminal law, and I had this court-appointed case where I represented a young man who was just recently out of prison and accused of committing another crime. Well, this young man was not so much of a young man, and he definitely wasn't a little guy. So he was about 6'5", 270 pounds, bald-headed, with the devil horns tattooed on the front of his head, swastikas on the side of his cheek, and he was a member of the Aryan Brotherhood. And so I represented this guy, and what people thought, clearly he was going back to jail, but I am him. So he doesn't go to jail. He gets a light probation. And so you think that's the end of the story. A couple of months later, I get a call. The judge says, Larry, I don't care what you're doing. Get your butt to my court right now. So I hustle over to the court. I get to the court, go into the judge's chamber. Her entire staff is in her chambers. I'm like, okay, is this a surprise birthday party? What are we doing? And she said, no. She said, your client is in my courtroom crying. And I looked at her. I said, what client? She said, the big guy. You know the guy. I said, oh, Jim is in the courtroom. I said, what you called me for? They said, he wants to talk to you. I said, wouldn't that be a good opportunity for your bailiff, who is in the room with you, to have a deeper conversation of what he wanted with me? She said, Larry, I hear you, but will you go out there and find out what this guy needs? So I go out and I talk to Jim, and I said, hey, man, what is your big butt out here doing scaring all of these people? And he says, I can't do it. And this is the part that gets serious. He says, I haven't been free at any point in my life that I can remember, and I don't know what to do. I need to go back to jail. I said, man, look, I believe in the Constitution, my friend, and I don't just believe in people going to jail for the sake of going to jail. And I've already shown and established that you should not be in jail at this point. But after talking to him a little bit more, I was absolutely convinced that if I didn't do something, he was going to do something in order to go back to jail. So I said, if I can at least get you off of the streets and somewhere, will you work with me? He said, man, just help me. So talk to the judge, and we make arrangements to get him assistance, something that helped him transition and acclimate himself to being free. And so he was happy about that. And so he gives me a hug. And I said, hey, man, why in the hell did you call me? He said, you didn't look at what was on my face. You looked past that at me and my situation. He said, I never had a lawyer that cared more about the situation than they did than my appearance. I told him, man, without this Constitution, I wouldn't be here. Because see, the 13th Amendment had to be written so people who look like me can be free. So I love every part of the Constitution, even representing big head people like yourself. He laughed, and that was the last time I saw my guy. And I hope he got the help that he needs. And so to answer that question, nah, I don't just represent people who look like me. I represent people who are in need. I represent people who need help. Whether you look like me and it's a police brutality case, 1983, whether you've been hit, whether a pharmaceutical company has sold you a drug that they knew was unsafe, whether a cosmetic company has sold you a product that they knew would cause you harm, or a corporation has dumped chemicals into the water where you live and caused you and your family to get ill. I'm a defender of the Constitution, and I'm Larry Taylor, your real life lawyer.